this ends up being take 2. I hit the wrong button on the camera. Anyway, I wanted to do an update on my 790. Couple of things. One, I added dust collection to it the other day. I copied this idea from another feller on YouTube, and I should have written down his name before I started the video. But he made a really low dust collector out of white melamine and glued it all up. It looked fantastic, worked fantastic. So I thought I'd copy the same thing with my own variation of it. I used 3-inch PVC pipe, and it, like his, it works fantastic. You need 16 inches of 3-inch PVC or so. I bought a 5-foot piece because that's the smallest piece they make. And a 3x3 90-degree PVC coupling and a 3x2 PVC reducer to 2 inches and about 16 inches or so, 2 feet, however long you want, to reach your of 2-inch PVC to hook your shop back into. I use a rigid 16-gallon shop back with a Dust Deputy and a homemade container that I made, must be a year or so ago. And if you will watch that, I was surprised the other day when I took it out and emptied it for about the 3rd time. The glue joints are all tight. Watch the lid, see if you can see it sucked down. That was the wrong vacuum. That's the vacuum hooked up to my scroll saw. Okay, that's hooked up to a 16-gallon rigid shop back. It does everything I need for my jointer and table saw combination, the surface planer, thickness planer, the radial arm saw, the router, and if I want to hook sanders and stuff up to it, it's all I need is that shop back. I don't need one of those expensive dust collection systems for my little shop. It takes care of my bandsaw also, and the drill press if I want to pull a hose over there and set it next to the hose and suck the stuff out as I suck the chips away as I drill. The other thing I found out on the radial arm saw was that everybody said that these rip scales are not accurate. Well, I went through the trouble a couple of days ago of just testing things out to see why wouldn't it be. So I adjusted this thing to where this little pointer, once it comes to the mark, I don't try and center it on the mark, when it just comes to the mark, it's cutting 1 inch. Right to the mark, cuts 1 1/16. I found it to be right on the money. And of course, if I had something critical, if I just needed a bunch of boards that were about 1.5 inches, 1 7/16, 1 9/16, it didn't matter. I'd just set it 1.5 inches and rip them all up. If I was just ripping stuff, I was going to run through the joiner anyway, or the planer or whatever. But if I had something critical, I would run a test piece in a 1/2 inch or so to see where the kerf is and measure over to it from the edge of the board and see what I got. But so far, every time I've done that, it's been right on the money. So this could be very handy. It'll rip on the end rip all the way out to about 8 3/8. The marks stop at 8, but I'm pretty pleased with that. Now I want to talk a little bit more about the stands I've been building and why. Well, that thing weighs about 90 or 100 pounds for one thing, and I was putting it on top of a old workmate that I've got, one of those real heavy duty workmates. But it was always, it was not portable. I mean, it was just a pain in the ass. It was always right out in the middle of the floor. This stand is extremely sturdy. This is something I'm going to start doing, putting 1/8-inch plywood on the top, keep dust out of the bottom, because all these stands are open for now because I can't afford to buy the plywood to make the drawers. But I'm going to put drawers in that stand, in my radial arm saw stand, and in my latest creation, if we can see it. Let me see if we can see it. What we do, just turn everything upside down. I think, well, we did, but I don't know what happened there. What the hell? I just turned everything upside down. Oh, because I flipped this thing. There we go. If you turn this little screen on the thing too far, it'll turn everything upside down. So sitting over here is my new router stand for, I finally got a place to put, my son gave me this router stand this router table about 1.5 years ago. And about 6 months ago, I bought a Bosch, this is a Bosch table. I bought a 2 1/3 horsepower Bosch router, plunge, you know, the fixed base and the plunge. And I finally just got around just this week to mounting it. There again, I got to pull it off again and put a dust cover on the top because it's going to cream the drawers with dust if I don't. But there again, I want to build 2 drawers for that. For my radial arm saw down here, there'll be probably 3 drawers. Over here on the joiner, probably 3 drawers, or not joiner, planer, probably 3 drawers also. Man, that will just put a lot of stuff. All the router stuff can go underneath the router. Table saw stuff and various things can go here. Whatever can go underneath there. Then, once I sell this, the old DeWalt, I'm sorry, Delta saw, which shouldn't take me too long to sell. I plan on making a bigger, instead of this little assembly table that's 24 by 44, I plan on making a 28 by 60 on wheels, so I can roll it around. Probably everything on that cart will get tossed except the piece of plywood and the casters. I'll keep those 4-inch casters and put it on my new cart so I can, like this one, so I can roll it around. It's very handy. And I'll build it sturdier than that. Now let's talk about the radial arm saw, or the table saw. I picked up this table saw. It's a Rockwell Delta 9-inch saw with a 4-inch joiner. This thing has been fantastic. I picked it up for $40. It was rusty. It was all out of adjustment. Things were loose. The blades, he had a dull blade in it. The joiner blades were dull. The spring was off of this thing here. He didn't know what the hell it was for. The fence was not lined with the miter slots, and the miter slots, the table was not mounted. Well, the motor and, well, anyway, I had to adjust the blade to the miter slots, and then anyway, after putting a new blade on it and tuning it up, I think it took me about 4, 5, 6 hours to tune the thing up and get it going. Another couple hours to get the rust off the top. I used a orbital sander with WD-40 and 80 grit sandpaper, and it cleaned up beautifully. So I was going to get rid of it because it was taking up so much floor space, but now that I've got things moved out of the middle of the floor, against the walls, I'm finding out how much space I really have in here. And I may keep this. It's on wheels. It moves fairly easy. It probably weighs 300 pounds. It took my grandson and I, both of us, to turn it over for me to put dust collection in the bottom and then flip it back up. So it's heavy. I kind of messed with the saw. These are the fence rails. And they used to stick out. One here and one back here. And every time I'd come around this saw, I'd catch one of those in the ribs, just about every time. So off they go. I was going to get rid of it, the table saw, but doggone it, there's just things that not very many. Okay, the rib capacity on this saw is now down to about 16 inches. Is about all I can rip. But I'm not going to rip 48 inches on that saw anyway. If I've got something 48 inches, my radial arm saw will rip 27. That's more than halfway through a sheet. So if I need a 32-inch piece, I just cut 16 inches off, rip 16 inches off. It's more powerful by another half horsepower. This is 1 horse. And really, that is more than a half a horsepower stronger than this motor. So, what can a radial arm saw do? I'm sorry, what can a table saw do that a radial arm saw can't do? Box joints. Well, I like to make box joints. You can't make box joints that accurately, well, without an extreme amount of effort on the radial arm saw. And I enjoy making these boxes. And as soon as I get my shop set up again, I'll be back to making them. But this box was made almost totally with a table saw, my planer, and this up here was made on the scroll saw. So in spite of the fact that I've been talking about to myself and others about selling my trusty old radial table saw, bear in mind I only paid $40 for this thing. The only reason to get rid of it is if it was in the way. Well, it was in the way. But now that I get stuff moved around better, it's not so much in the way as it used to be. Maybe others can think of, maybe some of you other guys can think of something that the table saw can do better than the radial arm saw besides box joints. I have struggled with that, and I've come up with no new ideas about what a table saw can do better. You know, you can buy a tenoning jig for it for $75 and do a pretty good job of doing tenons pretty efficiently. But I can cut them on my radial arm saw with a dado blade. Just as quick and just as accurate, probably quicker, because I only have to make one cut on each side, where those you have to cut the vertical and then you have to turn it over and cut the heel on the thing. It doesn't seem any more efficient to me than a radial arm saw. So the whole intention here when I started with this radial arm saw stuff about 3 years ago, was to phase out the table saw. And frankly, I think the radial arm saw is just as safe as a table saw. It's just different. I have not cut myself on this radial arm saw yet, and I've been using it now for a year and a half, but I mangled my thumb pretty good. It's still sore 2.5 years later when I mangled it a little bit on this table saw. It's the thing about safety. And I hate the guys that just go overboard on safety. But here's what I say. If you have the slightest inkling that what you're doing might not be the smartest thing to do, don't do it. Think of another way. There's always another way to do it. Some sort of hold down, some sort of a different kind of push stick, a different tool. There's nothing inherently dangerous about using a radial arm saw, any more so than there something inherently dangerous about using a table saw. I've got just as many kickbacks on that table saw as I've gotten on a radial arm saw. Take a board that's got an 8-foot board you want to rip. That's got a 1/4-inch crown in it and a slight little bit of twist to it, and try and rip it on a table saw. You're going to get the same results there as you get on a radial arm saw. You're going to get a kickback. It's going to try and throw that board right back at you. So it's no different. You know, people that say that radial arm saws are more dangerous than a table saw, they don't have any experience or enough experience with a radial arm saw. I belong to a forum of radial arm saw guys, and I learn a lot from these guys about safety, about procedure, about setups, all kinds of things. Plus, there's a good book written by John Eakes, another one written by Wally Kunkel. Both those books cost about $30 a piece. Well, damn it, they're worth it. If you want to use these tools and learn how to tune them up, and learn how to use them safely, then you ought to get some knowledge. And you know, it's hard to get all the knowledge that you need through experience. I mean, I don't want to cut off my fingers in order to figure out how to use one of these saws. I'd rather spend $30 and buy a book. Join a forum. This forum has 10,000 members of radial arm saw users. Some of these guys are quite expert. I mean, yeah, I don't agree with every little thing everybody says on the forum. Well, that's the nature. If you get 10,000 men together, you're not going to get 10,000 guys to agree. But there are some things they agree on, and that they love radial arm saws is one thing. Well, I don't think there's anything more to say about this on today's video. So I hope it was informative. Thanks for watching.